All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. My name is Nikki Gable. I am a program manager here at Michigan Public Health Institute. Today, we will be going through a webinar from the Michigan Recovery Friendly Workplace Initiative, and it's called Supporting Recovery at Work, the Role of Peer Recovery Coaches. Just a couple quick housekeeping things before we get into the actual webinar. Please keep your microphone muted throughout today's session. If you can, that would be wonderful. Use your raise hand function or the chat throughout the presentation for questions. We welcome you to keep your cameras on, but as mentioned, we are going to be recording. So please feel free if you would like to keep your camera on, wonderful. If you are not comfortable, feel free to take it off. That is okay as well. And you can also change your Zoom name as you see fit. As I mentioned, my name is Nikki Gable. I'm with Michigan Public Health Institute, and I would love for my co-presenters to introduce themselves. Justin, do you want to go ahead and start?
Hi, everybody. So happy to see you all today. My name is Justin Gulbranson. I'm the program manager with Community Recovery Alliance. I'm also a grateful person in recovery. What that means to me is that I have not picked up drugs or alcohol in 4 years. And more importantly, for today, I'm a recovery coach.
Thanks, Justin. Richard, do you want to go next? You're on mute.
I muted me. Hi, my name is Richard Jewell. I am a certified peer recovery coach for Lifeboat Addiction Recovery Services in Lansing, Michigan. I'm also the coordinator for a recovery friendly workplace for our office, and I'm happy to have that role. I too am a recovery person in recovery. I have 30 years of being clean and sober, and I am so honored to be able to serve as a peer recovery coach and to be here today with Nikki and my cohorts, Marnie and Justin.
Thanks, Richard. Marnie?
Hello, friends. My name is Marnie Winfield. I am the Assistant Director of 217 Recovery and also a grateful person in recovery from substance use disorder. I started off as a certified peer recovery coach myself and have ventured into becoming a licensed master social worker and also certified advanced alcohol and drug counselor. So we're in Traverse City, Michigan. 217 Recovery is. We are we provide the trainings for the recovery friendly workplace, which you'll hear all about. And I'm excited to be here today. So thank you.
Thanks, Marnie. All right. So just a quick note before we get started to really dive into what peer recovery coaches are, what they do, and how they can help our employers around the state. I wanted to set the stage with what a recovery-friendly workplace is, and why we're bringing this forward, this particular webinar forward. So a recovery-friendly workplace is a workplace where employers and employees intentionally work together to create policies, practices, and a culture that support employees who are in recovery from or affected by substance use disorders. And it's a process that we are working with employers around the state to designate them as a recovery-friendly workplace. We do that through a process, and we're having an information session about that entire process in June. We can send that out after the training if you're interested. And some of our folks that have joined us today are already designated as a recovery-friendly workplace. But what we do is we train the leadership staff on what substance use disorder is, what recovery is, what it can look like, the different pathways of recovery. We talk about policies that support and protect both the employers and the employees. And we also really want to think about policies that are recovery friendly. So supporting those return to work journeys, and just really kind of reducing the stigma that's in the workplace so that those who are in recovery can continue to be and feel supported in their recovery. Also, those who are not but are interested in finding recovery, they feel that they can come forward and seek those different pathways. So we try to align them with resources. So some of the resources that are available are not always known, really to our employers. They have HR, they have EAPs, things that are very much available if they're a larger organization. Smaller organizations may not have access to all of these things. So, a part of our process of designating recovery friendly workplaces is really trying to train on the different resources that are available. One of those very important resources that we'll be talking about today is our peer recovery coaches. And that's something that, unless an individual has worked with a peer recovery coach, unless a family member has worked with a peer recovery coach, they may not really know that they exist and what they can do to really support that journey of recovery. So I'm going to turn our presentation over to our team of experts. And first we have Justin, who will be starting us off and giving us an overview of peer recovery coaches. Justin?
Thank you for that, Nikki. Yeah, we get out there and we talk to businesses about coaching and peer recovery coaching, and we realize that, man, they might not know what we're talking about. So yeah, that's what we're here to do today. So our presentation overview, we're going to talk about what is a peer recovery coach? What are the roles of a peer recovery coach? We're going to get into the differences between PRC and CPRC. These are a couple of things you might hear. We're going to explain what those are and the slight differences between those two and what the trainings look like. How can you access peer recovery coaches to benefit your company, and where you can find peer recovery coaches, and how you can partner with a peer recovery coach in your workplace. So first we'll get into what is a peer recovery coach. Peer recovery coaches are the driving force behind multiple pathways. Now, a lot of people might be familiar with sponsors, the 12 steps, AA. Well, we're not that. We are not sponsors. There's a lot of other things that people are doing to maintain their recovery, and we deal with all of that. So peer recovery coaches are individuals that have been successful in the recovery process and help others experience similar situations. Peer recovery coach promotes recovery, removes barriers and obstacles to recovery, serving as a personal guide or mentor for people seeking or already in a life of recovery from drugs and alcohol. Peer recovery coach can effectively extend the reach of treatment beyond the clinical setting into everyday environments of those seeking a successful, sustainable recovery journey. We find that it can be really easy for people to find recovery at some point in their life, but keeping them there, that's where the hard work really starts. And a recovery coach can really help that person stay in recovery. To become a peer recovery coach, some people may have to undergo a background check, receive extensive training, have various lived experience, and receive ongoing educational opportunities. Peer recovery coaches are truth tellers, advocates, resource brokers, and so much more. So what do coaches do? Coaches guide in the following areas. We do so much, but here's just some quick examples of some of the things that we do. Coaches can help develop health and wellness plans, achieve recovery goals, action plans, and objectives. We advocate to engage in self-directive care, build bridges to people and resources in the community. We help with access and utilization of community resources. So imagine somebody getting away from people, places, and things, and they might end up in an area that they're not familiar with. They don't even know where they are half the time. Maybe they're just getting out of treatment. They don't know where the jobs are. They don't know where the meetings are at. They don't know where the food pantries are at. A recovery coach is somebody that's familiar with this area and has been there and done that. So they already know how to navigate all this stuff, and then they can step in and help guide this person to all of these community resources. They can provide support and supportive services during a crisis. And I'll give you an example. A couple of years ago, I was out at this really fancy Valentine's Day dinner with my fiance, and I got this phone call. And the phone call's from my sister, and she tells me, "Hey, our mom just passed away, and it was unexpected," and it put me in a state of shock, right? And right in front of me was a bar. There was a bar right in front of me. Now, at the time, I'm 2 years sober. There's a bar right in front of me, and I just got the worst piece of news in my life. So the first thing I did was I called my recovery coach, and my recovery coach, he walked me through the entire grieving process and helped me get through that moment. And I'll love them forever for that. It was amazing. We can assist with criminal justice involvement. So I've literally sat in rooms in front of judges with lawyers to help support my recoveries. I've done it on Zoom. One of my coworkers, she actually sits on the recovery courts to help individuals through that whole process. We assist in removing barriers and roadblocks, navigate community transportation systems, driver's license reinstatement. We do a lot of this, and we do all of this with our lived experience. I spent $2,500 in 2 years with a lawyer to help me get back on the road and got nowhere. I spent 3 hours with a recovery coach, and she was able to do in 3 hours what that lawyer couldn't do in 2.5 years. So that's another thing that we can help out with. And like I said, we do that with our lived experience. We help with education and trainings. Employment opportunities is huge. I think the coolest thing that the RFW initiative has done for me is it's given me the opportunity to spend a lot of time with companies, right? And I also spend a lot of time with participants. So I get a really good chance to sit back and get to know workplace culture for these companies. And then I can look at individuals and say, you know what? I think this person would be a really good fit for this company. So we play a big part in the referral process for all of that. Self-employment opportunities. Some people might get to a point where they're like, you know what? I want to start my own business. How do I do that? We can jump in and help them out with that. Locate and acquire appropriate housing. Housing is huge right now. Well, it's a huge problem anyway. So it's really hard for people to find a place, especially if you're coming out of treatment or you're trying to transition out of sober living. This is another area that we can help out with. Stigma reduction is huge. Holding space for people in recovery. Some people, they just want somebody to listen to them. It might have been a long time since somebody actually sat back and listened to a person, and we are trained in active listening to do that. And the biggest thing that we do, we're resource brokers. All right. When people come to us, they may not know what the local resources are and need those resources. So a recovery coach is really familiar with local resources to help people in their area. All right, so we're going to get into the difference between PRC and CPRC. These are a couple of things you may hear sometimes. I'll let you know right now, they do the same thing, but there are some slight differences with the training process. So we'll get to PRC, which stands for Peer Recovery Coach first. The training process, basically, a person with lived experience with drugs, alcohol, mental health is recommended, but not mandatory. Allies can and do become coaches. A person in recovery from substance use disorder, though, is recommended to have at least 6 months of sustained recovery to take this training. Sometimes they might have to go through a background check, and then once they get into the training, there would be 30 hours of Coach Academy training, followed by 16 hours of ethical consideration training. Then the person would have to have at least 1 year of sustained recovery to coach over the phone, and then 2 years of sustained recovery to coach in person. Once you take this person that takes this training, you can be a volunteer or you can be in a paid position. So now we're going to get into CPRC. Now this is the Certified Peer Recovery Coach training through MDHHS. To take this training, you have to have a high school diploma, GED, or provide your college transcripts. You must have received treatment from a public or private provider. They would have had to have 2 years of continuous recovery at some point in their life after the age of 18. Personal experience in navigating treatment services, and self-identifies as having a substance use disorder, non-substance use disorder, or some kind of mental health concern, and be free to share their story of hope and recovery. They must be employed by CMH or contract providers such as CRA, 217, or Lifeboat. Must meet the MDHHS application approval process and adhere to the MDHHS Peer Recovery Coach Code of Ethics. Now, once you meet all of that criteria and you go to the training, they would go through 40 hours of state certification training. And then after the training, go back to Lansing about a week later and take a final exam. And on that final exam, they would have to get 71% or better on the exam. Then after that, it's followed up by continued education and recertification every 2 years. So they do the same thing. CPRC and the PRSA, they do the same stuff. The training's just different. And with the CPRC, there's more extensive training that's followed. All right, now we are going to go over to Richard, and he's going to talk about the benefits of having access to peer recovery coaches for your company.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. Having a peer recovery coach in a relationship through a recovery-friendly workplace, we reduce a stigma, first of all. Now, what's a stigma? Well, he's just a drunk. Yeah, he's hungover. Leave him alone. He doesn't know much. That's Elkie, drug addict. All those are names, and they bring images and they're stigmas. Because really, substance use disorder is a disease. It's a disease that is identified through the chemicals produced in the brain. It's scientifically proven. And if we can reduce the stigma, we can then allow for those people who are suffering from substance use disorder to feel more included instead of ostracized. Peer recovery coaches provide a stronger support network for fostering a sense of belonging. Right there. One of the symptoms that I had before I got clean and sober was I felt alone. I had nothing to belong to. I had me and my drug and alcohol, and that was it. When I took on recovery, I became aware that there was a whole network of people, and my employer supported me also and brought me back in a last chance agreement. 13 years later, I retired, and the man who wanted to fire me is still one of my best friends. Peer recovery coaching strengthens the company's support network, which can lead to reduced relapse rates and improved social support systems in around the workplace. Companies have EAP programs. This is literally a way in which to create an built-in EAP program for those who are suffering from substance use disorders. Employing someone who is in recovery is so much more beneficial than someone who isn't in many ways, because they're honest. We show up for work. We don't call in sick. We want to do our job. We want to live life. We want to be part of the team. The social systems which we create by helping someone recover as a peer recovery coach not only relate to their substance use disorder, but we look at all the pillars. We look at financial, medical, spiritual, social, all of those that are included in helping someone become the person they want to be. By assessing peer recovery coaches, your company is sending a clear message to your team that you now have the resources available to help support individuals in recovery and to create a life they don't want to lose. You're becoming a friend, an ally. They know that your door is open, and that when you sit and talk with them about what you see in their performance that might lead you to believe, given the traits and that you're seeing, or the symptoms that you're seeing, they know that you're going to offer them help instead of just offer them the door. Mm-hmm. Ongoing support from peer recovery coaches can lead to better mental and emotional well-being, contribute positively to your company's workplace and culture. You have a client who is very well aware of substance use disorders, recovery-friendly workplace, and he was able to identify through the program and using the tools a couple of employees who were having problems, and he was able to get them the help they need. And they're some of the best producing employees right now, mm-hmm. especially in sales. Educational and training. We train people in substance use disorder recognition, harm reduction, and medication-assisted treatments, and naloxone or Narcan administration. Medicated assisted treatments are medical or medications which are pharmacologically proven and accepted, that are given to people with certain substance use disorders to help them stop their cravings and be able to become fully functional and contributing to work and society. And Narcan, we've reduced by 30% in 2025 the overdose deaths by supplying Narcan to our recovery-friendly workplace sites and to other people. And I carry it with me. And this year compared, there's more than a 13% reduction. Last year, 30%. This year, 13%. Growing your team through a referral process when someone's looking for employment and would be a good fit for your company. You know, we are not only people who help others recover from their substance use disorder. We help them find work, and we do it using IPS, which is employment placement system, and that's individualized ways of doing it. And we need resources. And I have a company who only will hire people in recovery. And right now, that company's already met its May sales goals for the month through people in recovery. I keep trying to flick the steam. Okay. PRC one-on-one coaching services. Now, by incorporating peer recovery coaches for employees, it enhances your company's morale, the employee's morale, job satisfaction, productivity, reduces liability, and it's at no cost for us to come in through the Michigan Recovery Friendly Workplace training. You create the relationship with us wherever you're located. As an idea, 75% of people who identify as having a substance use disorder are employed. 20% of those people in construction have a substance use disorder, and 20% is the highest, and it goes down a little bit to about 10% in other industries. So whether we like it or not, whether we want to admit it or not, we have people who are suffering from substance use disorder that we work with daily, that you employ. Emotional support. We provide emotional support in non-judgmental spaces for the employee to process their feelings and challenges. We help them build emotional resilience, and we use techniques that we're trained in doing that. We're just not telling people what to do. The people are telling us what they want by the way that we interact with them, and then we help them get what they want. Stress management. Coaches are trained to understand the stress associated with addiction and provide skills to manage stress effectively. That comes from dealing with PTSD to loneliness to suicidal ideations. We're trained to identify and to help people in that. Goal setting and accountability. Coaches work with employees to set clear, actionable goals in all areas of their lives and provide accountability to help them achieve those goals. So we literally are life coaches. We help people build a life worth living. And community support. We connect employees with all forms of support agencies in the community, from treatment, medical, mental health, educational, financial, state and local governments, recovery organizations, and state and support groups. And we help maintain sobriety. Justin mentioned one case that was personal to him. But coaches maintain our own sobriety. I live a life of recovery 24 hours a day. And I exhibit my behaviors and my actions that serve as a role model and foster a sense of shared recovery. And it's hard for me sometimes to imagine being clean and sober for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is. But I am, and I love the life I have. And the last one is we provide 360 degrees of life coaching. And I really want to stress this to employers that are listening. When we have a client, they become an association for life. We literally become their go-to person and go-to group who can help them achieve whatever they wish in life. And then you have somebody who's going to show up and work. And I wanted to coin a phrase here. You know, people suffer from absenteeism is very high with substance use disorder. Well, presenteeism is also. And presenteeism is when you show up for work, but you're not really there. And there is a lot of presenteeism going on. The numbers are about $8,500 a year cost to a business for someone who has an active substance use disorder. That relates to an $8,500 savings when someone's in recovery. I think I'm done.
Wonderful. Thank you, Richard, and thank you also, Justin, for that information. So now you kind of have an idea of what a peer recovery coach is and kind of how employers and businesses can benefit from peer recovery coaches. So now we're going to get into pretty simply, it's a short but very important information on where you can find a peer recovery coach. So here you're going to see a map of Michigan. For those of you that live in Michigan, I know some of you are from elsewhere. So to the right there, you're going to see those circles are the recovery community organizations that exist here in Michigan. And so the ones that are in the pink, those indicate recovery community advisors. So we're organizations, 217 Recovery, CRA that Justin's in, Lifeboat as well, including some others. We have been trained in training businesses in how to be designated as a recovery-friendly workplace, what that entails, introducing them to ourselves as their local recovery community organization, and all the beautiful information that you heard about earlier. We include that as well, and then some. So this map kind of shows where they exist. And there are other organizations in Michigan that provide peer recovery coaching as well. So we'll get into that in a little bit. But the website recoveryfriendlymi.com is a location, our RFW website, where you can actually find other location or other information on where to find a peer recovery coach. So we're going to go into other ways to find a peer recovery coach. So the additional ways, first and foremost, I mean, and I'm a little biased, but would be to contact your local recovery community organization if you have one that's nearby. If there is not one that's nearby you, even if they aren't local to you, they probably still can connect you to somewhere or some kind of way, even if it's telehealth, to connect you to a peer recovery coach. MARCO, which stands for Michigan Association of Recovery Community Organizations, they have a very similar map on their website as well that has recovery community organizations in their locations. It also has some extensive and actually links to the RCO's websites. So it kind of makes it an easy and direct way to communicate with a recovery community organization right away. And then for those of you who are not familiar with 211. So 211 is for the state of Michigan. It's an easy to remember number that you can dial that kind of acts as like an operator to connect to local, confidential, and free resources. This would include addiction prevention and recovery community organizations. Now, I really love this resource, and I think that it goes unnoticed and doesn't get enough attention because of the gamut of information that it actually provides to individuals. We'll have people come in who are connected with a recovery coach, and they kind of don't even know what it is that they need still. And sometimes we will say, hey, if you're at home and you're thinking of things that you need and we're not available or what have you, I mean, empowering these people to take it upon themselves to find connections to resources themselves, to not only lean on their recovery coach, is call 211. So they might say, I'm starting from the ground up, and they might need to know where their local food pantries are and what the hours of those are, because you might know this place in town has a food pantry, but is it open on a day that you're available to go? Do you have transportation to get there, to get the groceries from the food pantry? Hot meals is another one that we've had people look into and get information from. When are hot meals provided and where are they at? And so these are some of the things, especially with people who are in early recovery, they might not know about. And it's something that can make a difference about getting them connected to those necessary basic needs that might not be available or they might not know about. So there's lots of great information there. Support groups are also available, information on support groups, different counseling services they can connect you to. Utility assistance is another one. People who might have ignored their utility bill and now they're looking at a shutoff and they don't know what to do. So this is a really soft way to be connected to local resources that can that can help you in those areas. 988 is another very important number. So that is the suicide and crisis hotline, and that does work immediate crisis counseling. However, they can also connect to local resources. So that is another important number to remember. There's SAMHSA's National Helpline, and they specialize in connecting people to some facilities, support groups, and community-based organizations. This organization has a lot of information on their website, and they are they have a base of knowledge base on different availability for resources as well. So this is a really good contact to have also. Then there's the Michigan Peer Warm Line. It's 188 Peer 753, and then the website is right there. They're open from 10 to 2, but the nice thing about this is they're open 365 days a year. So it's a great service during the holidays, different random, holidays or times when lots of places are closed. So they do offer two 20-minute calls. So it is a little bit limited, but it's a good starting point if you need something and you need access to like getting started. And they can probably work with you to connect to another more long-term solution for a recovery coach. So in terms of how to find a peer recovery coach, including the ones that I spoke of above, even just being familiar, asking your primary care, seeing if they have any ideas of where they can connect to a peer recovery coach. Local behavioral health agencies often know how to connect you to a peer recovery coach. 12-step offices, so like your local AA and NA offices, lots of times they'll know who to connect you to, especially if there's volunteer coaches that aren't necessarily advertised or have a direct connection to through a organization. Neighborhood wellness centers is another one, and then individual therapists or counselors. We are hoping know a little bit more about peer recovery coaches and how to find a peer recovery coach. And we're making headway in that, and kind of just the educational piece on really informing individuals on what a peer recovery coach is and how you find one. So hopefully all of that was helpful information.
A lot of really good information. I think that for those who are new to this space, those were really key bits and pieces. What is a recovery coach? How are they trained? What do they do? And how do we find them? That's all incredibly important when you're trying to learn about this important resource. So all of these folks, these three, Justin, Marnie, and Richard, are our advisors. They have been trained. I think you've heard that a couple times now as a recovery friendly workplace advisor. They're recovery community organizations. Those trainings that I mentioned very early on to become designated as recovery friendly workplace is going to go a little bit deeper into some of the things that you have heard here. And I love how each one of them brought in a piece of some of the things that we talk about, which is stigma and recovery and what is substance use disorder. And we talk about all of these really important resources that are available that maybe an employer may not fully understand. And then we also go into policies that really are supportive, as I mentioned early on, to both the employer and the employees. So those are really key, and some employers may not fully understand just how important those policies are. So we really dive a little bit deeper into that. We'll have more conversations coming up and wraparound events as well that will broaden that even further. So if you're not a part of our newsletter, definitely sign up. But what these advisors really are able to provide are the strengths, the challenges, the resources in their community. And this is a statewide initiative. And so thinking about how do we reach all of these employers and how do we really connect them to these important resources? It involves a community approach. And so connecting with our RCOs is really important. They know the neighborhoods, and finding one in your backyard is really, I would put that on your radar. Don't, if you think, if maybe we need it, maybe we don't, just do it. Just try to find those connections so that when you do need it, you are prepared. They know the wraparound services and it's no cost. These recovery community organizations in partnership with us are really providing a service to help employees sustain their recovery at no cost. And they do have access to peer recovery coaches. And kind of thinking about that business and why should we do this? A lot of times when we're meeting with employers, they want to know why should we do this? And so it's really thinking about how do we keep our employers, how do we keep our skilled employers at work showing up supported, healthy, and really providing that environment that keeps them in their space. So peer recovery coaches are just one of those pieces of the puzzle. And for those who are in recovery, they can help, with that retention piece, keep them engaged in their treatment. They build that recovery capital. And how do we keep them along that path? And that's, finding the support that they need. And it's just like I said, it's just another piece of the puzzle that keeps them on their journey. They help to reduce substance use, improve the quality of life. That translates to reduced absenteeism and workplace disruptions. And I mentioned early on that they can kind of be an extension of the HR and EAP system. And, when we send our folks to treatment, when we send them and they come back and they're in their recovery, it's not necessarily part of the benefit program, right? We don't have in our benefits in our EAPs necessarily a peer recovery coach. It's not something that's currently built into the system. And so our RCOs can provide something like that. And there's different levels in terms of the different organizations who are providing this service. So some of them are able, as a community organization, to provide this. Some of them, they might be connected to a clinical provider. So there's different levels, but it's important to know what they do and how they can support your staff. They can reduce the hospitalization and can continue that journey, as I've mentioned, and they provide that lived experience, which we can provide all these things, we can provide all these benefits, but without that lived experience, without that connection, it can be a challenge. So having somebody who's been through it, who knows it, and can provide that resource is so important. So there's some different ways that we just thought we were like, well, how can they partner? How can we do this for our employers? And again, one of it is just sharing that these resources exist. Have that connection ready. Be prepared to share these organizations that are within your network, within your community when an employee needs it. You could have a visit from a peer recovery coach to your location. They can come and share what those resources are. Depending on the size and the scope and the abilities of our recovery community organizations and your locations, they could come in weekly if that's something that is available to them into your location. Or it could be just to introduce themselves as that support service and introduce those abilities that peer recovery coaches can provide staff. Peer recovery coaches can host recovery meetings on site, or if they have it at their facilities, at least you can provide your employees with that resource. They can host Narcan trainings at the workplace. We've had some of our teams, 217, went to a lot of some of our RFWs who are restaurants who had Narcan on site, but they didn't know how to use it. And so can we make that connection by coming and training all staff on how to use Narcan? They can provide trainings to employees on substance use disorder and how to reduce stigma. Again, talking about the resources that are available and just really trying to think through how we can make sure that we all have that resource available when needed in our Rolodex that don't necessarily exist anymore, but our phones, and making sure that we know who they are when we need them. We can send out this slide deck to anyone who is interested afterwards, but we have this also on our Recovery from the Workplace website. If you would like access to some of our advisors, the ones that are highlighted in green here, 217 in Traverse City, CRA in Petoskey, and Lifeboat in Lansing, those are highlighted in who you've met today. but we do have others that are around the state of Michigan that you can also connect with. I know that we have a couple also ones that I've seen that are joined. We have Brian from Passenger Recovery and Camille from 1016 who are also here today, that are great resources. So feel free to visit our website and look up who's in your backyard. And Marnie also gave a lot of other great resources. If we're not on your list, just find a peer recovery coach for your teams. And I think that's where we really want to get to, is like know who and what they are and what they can do for your staff. There's a lot. Any questions?